Hello, this is Blair Burke, and this is my demographics report on Junction City Middle School here in Junction City, Kansas, alongside USD 475, and this is for ALTC 805, working with diverse and exceptional leaders under Dr. Kelly Emmett. So first, I'd like to talk about the community description. Within the community demographics, as of 2021, the most recent survey taken was that Junction City, Kansas had a population of 19,952 people. It was a 3% decrease from last year, and it's on a steadily decline. This is due to our connection to Fort Riley and the amount of military families that are PCSing into and out of Fort Riley. The average household income as of 2021 was $61,122 with a 12.22% poverty rate. The racial composition of the Junction City community is that we are primarily white, with 63.2% of the population being white, 21.26% African American, 3.32% Asian, 1.69% Native American, and 2.83% other. The other includes Hawaiian and Native origin. Going on to the household types, 50.3% of the population in Junction City, Kansas are married. 13.9% of the household is female. 3.9% are of a male population, and 31.9% of the household types are non-family. Also, 30.93% have achieved some college education. 7.73% of the population obtained a graduate degree, and 2.59% was the lowest score, where the population achieved less than a 9th grade education. Moving on to languages, 83.37% of the population speak English only, and then 16.63% speak other language, with Spanish being 8.92% of the population. We do have a makeup of veterans here in Junction City, since we're so close to Fort Riley. There's a total of 2,932 male veterans and 779 female veterans. Of those veterans, 3.87% of them are in poverty, and there is a 25.50% veteran disability rate. With the school demographics pertaining to Junction City Middle School, we are a Title I school, and this simply just means that we provide schools with free and reduced lunches to help them meet their goals. We also make sure that all the children have, fair and equal opportunities to receive a high quality education. And that they are able to reach at a minimum a proficiency on the state academic standards scale. Within the middle school, there's a population of 43.88% female students and 56.12% male students. Of those students, 20.23% of them are African American, 19.81% are Hispanic, 44.52% white, 15.44% other, 62.62% are economically disadvantaged, and this was taken on the most recent 2019-2020 scale. So the new 2021 scale has not come out yet, but a lot of this, had to do with the poverty that a lot of people underwent during the pandemic, losing their jobs and all of that. 6.39% of our student population are currently ELL students. The remainder, they're all non-ELL. But this is a large number within our building where we have ELL students. Most of these ELL students, they understand English. Some of them require translators, but the translators aren't in the classrooms translating everything for them. They are working with them and checking for understanding. But a lot of the ELL students, their families are the ones that need translation as well. So we have to abide by that and make sure that every bit of communication that we send out is, able to be understood by their families. 15.87% of students have disabilities, and there are 939 total students in JCMS and 7,228 students in the entire district. So for school organization and climate, our attendance rate in our building is 94.8%, which is incredible, and we only had a 0.2 building dropout rate. For teacher quality, I wanted to include this. 96.34% of our staff are fully licensed and 3.66% are not fully licensed. I myself would fall under this not fully licensed because I am currently on the transition to teaching program where I will be fully licensed when I finish this program in May. Student background information. So I spoke about this a little on the other slide, but race and ethnicity within our school, you see the different levels from white to African American, Hispanic, and other, with primary, our building population being white, 44.52%, and then the other makeups of the race and ethnicities. I also provided the state levels as well, and you could see that the state population is majority white as well. For gender and age, I am looking at just 6th through 8th grade student population, so 11 to 13 years old. Within our building in 2020, 43.88% of the student population was female, and our larger student population was made up of male students. Regarding home language and socioeconomic economic status, in our buildings, 93.61% spoke English, with the rest of the students, 6.39%, ELL students speaking primarily Spanish, and I included the state averages as well. Student academic information. This was taken from 2019 to 2020. A lot of areas they were given a waiver where they did not have to test due to COVID. So the most recent levels that I have are from the 2019-2020 school year data. Reading, there was a high level 1 majority of 44.8%, math 45.24%, science a high level 1% of 49.52% students. Level 1 is limited ability to understand, and level 4 was excellent understanding for post-secondary success. And you could see through reading, math, and science that they are all under 6%, and in reading and math it's under 3%. For educational options, so for educational placement, this is typically determined through an IEP meeting, which includes parents and school personnel to see what route is best for each individual student. Students are then placed in either a general education setting or a more specialized special education setting, and this is typically for students who need fewer class sizes and more one-on-one instruction with minimal distractions. Some of the learning accommodations we provide, and it's not all inclusive, but we provide ELL accommodations where we have translators that work with the students. We have paraprofessionals that are assigned to 1 or 2 students, whoever's on their caseload, and they work with them through all of their classes. Social workers and MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support, which engages behavioral students and sets them on a path towards success if they're struggling with any certain behaviors and helping them work through those challenges. As far as testing accommodations, I took this on the route of, IEP testing, 504 testing, which you abide by law, and then special education placement and ELL. My reflection is in researching the school district and state data for USD 475 in Kansas. I was reminded of the high poverty rate that encompasses my school district. We have a variety of students that stem from all different backgrounds and need unconditional love and support from professional educators. It is our duty to protect, support, and guide them to success. It's also important to recognize the importance of one's individual culture and how their culture and traditions might have an impact on their learning styles and preferences. And building a support team that is aware of individual differences and needs is key to overall student and teacher success. Specifically because we are a Title I school and we do have a high poverty rate and we do have a large majority of students that are ELL students, it is important to be aware of their needs and accommodate them as best as we can to achieve overall success, not just in our school, but our district and statewide. But it all starts in your classroom, and that's one thing that I am a firm believer on. And there are my references for the data I retrieved from Kansas State Department of Education.